G'day folks, it's a beautiful sunny day out at the factory. I just thought I'd give you a little walk around of how we build a Highland Outbuilding and what you should look for when you're comparing us to the competition. Okay, so here's sort of like a ubiquitous build for us. This is a 10 by 16 Algonquin style building. For us, all that means is that it's a gable roof. So we have equal peaks on the front and the back. Usually when we put a door on the side, we're gonna put a dormer over that so that you don't get drips on your head. But I'm going to talk about the actual build process here today and the materials and the things that we use that make this a little bit different and a little bit premium compared to what you might find out there. So lots of you are price shopping, lots of you are looking for options, and totally respect that. Absolutely appreciate the the attention when you're looking at one of our buildings. But here's why I think you should buy a Highland Outbuilding. So first of all, any building, we should talk about the foundation first. That 2x4, by the way, is only there for the shed mule to pick the building up. So that's removable if you want to. But let's start down here. So every one of the Highland Outbuildings comes on a 6x6 pressure treated skid. That skid runs the entire length of the building from front to back. Whether it's an 8 wide, 10 wide, or 12 wide, we're always going to use a 6x6. We've seen lots of the competition using a 4x6 skid. I actually saw buildings the other day that were using 2x4s that were nailed together. In our opinion, that is not the right way to do a shed or a bunkie or a cabin. This 6-inch skid allows for air to get underneath the building. It's going to dry out after some rain or some snow. It's much, much stronger and provides a lot of stiffness to the bottom of the building. Nextly, we have a 1/2-inch layer of pressure treated plywood. We put that down there for a couple of reasons. So one is, it's a barrier for moisture. It's a barrier for rodents. It's a barrier for air. So the floor system that we put in these buildings is designed specifically so that we can have 4-season capabilities with a Highland Outbuilding. Next, we have our floor joists. We only use 2x6 pressure treated floor joists. Some of our competition will use a smaller floor joist so that they can get a taller building and shrink the height of this down. We're going to make that compromise and do a shorter building with a much, much, much stronger floor. And because this one is insulated in between these 2x6 floor joists, we're going to have typically rigid foam in between the floor joists. These can be had with either 24-inch or 16-inch centers. And you can have R10 or R20 in the floor. If you opt for spray foam, we'd be more than happy to do that for you too. You end up with R15 with a 2-inch spray. Okay, so that's sort of like the floor system. On top of that, by the way, the rigid foam acts as a vapor barrier. And it also does a really good job keeping your tootsies warm in the winter time. On top of that, we typically do a 5/8-inch plywood floor. We don't use pine boards. You're going to find some stuff out there that's a lot of rough cut everywhere. The only rough cut you're going to find is on the walls here, and we'll get to that in just a second. So the floor system is super solid. It's very heavy duty. It's super heavy. We move these things around with specific equipment because this building weighs a lot, and it should weigh a lot because we want it to stay in the shape that it's in all the way until you no longer need your building, which hopefully is forever. Okay, so from the outside in, let's talk about the exterior of the building too. We use as much as possible our locally sourced rough cut pine. That's our board and batten style. These buildings look classic, they're lovely. That's a nice thick pine that we source from just around the corner from the factory here. We use nothing but high quality fasteners. These are all screwed together. They're coated screws, so they're rust resistant, and they're screwed in multiple locations all the way up and down on the boards and the battens. You notice over here, for example, we've got a screw in the bottom. We've got some blocking here and a screw, some blocking here and a screw at the top. So this is very, very strong. It adds to the rigidity of the building, and it also looks great. We can do these buildings in steel as well if you want us to. That's a rarity for us. Maybe 1 out of 20 buildings gets steel put on it, but we're happy to do that, and we got a whole bunch of colors. So that's the first layer of the exterior. In behind this, and you can't see it on this building, but we put house wrap on every building, whether it's a standard shed or a fully insulated Highland Outbuilding. And the reason for that is siding is not a waterproof barrier. It's just aesthetic. It's going to do a pretty good job of keeping some moisture out, but the house wrap is 100% waterproof and allows the wall to breathe outwards. Let's go inside here for a second. So this building, oh, I love the new ones. They smell so good. So this building is, like I said, 10 by 16. We opted for 24-inch centers in the wall. The framing material in that wall is kiln dried, stamped, dimensional lumber, just like you would build a house out of. We do not use rough cut lumber in the framing. And the reason for that is the framing needs to stay in the position it's in when we build the building. If you use rough cut lumber, it's gonna shrink, it's gonna twist, it's gonna bend and crack. These buildings, whether you do 2x4 or 2x6 walls, and whether you do 24-inch centers or 16-inch centers, are all built with kiln dried dimensional lumber, okay? So that's a big difference between some of the stuff you may see. And I get customers that'll call me once in a while and say, well, hey, I can buy a shed from this guy and it's significantly cheaper. Well, you get what you pay for, okay? So once the framing's in there, we do have 3 insulation options. This building happens to have rock wall insulation, which in a 2x4 is R14. In a 2x6 wall, that gets you R24. You can do pink if you want. We rarely do pink anymore, but you can save a little bit of money on that. So that's R12 in a 2x4 wall and R22 in a 2x4 wall. And like we're gonna do next week, we'd be happy to spray foam a building for you too. It does cost significantly more, but spray foam has its benefits depending on who you speak with. I love the idea of spray foam, but we do the vast majority of our buildings have rock wool insulation, okay? Now, on top of that insulation, if you choose either pink or rock wool, we're gonna put a vapor barrier on this whole thing. So the vapor barrier is on the wall, it's in the ceiling, it's completely taped up and weather tight. That is an important part of a building, just like you would do in a house. You know, there's tuck tape behind this wall that's taping up all the seams, you know, it's completely airtight. That's really important to manage the moisture from within the building. And then on top of that, you know, you see in all of our buildings, we have this beautiful tongue and groove interior finish. So we source this locally. This is kiln dried material. And usually we're actually using staples to adhere these to the studs. The reason for that is this building has to sit on a trailer and it has to travel quite some distance to get to use. So if we put nails through the tongues into the framing, they're not nearly as strong as the staples are. These staples are not coming out of that framing, okay? Now, windows and doors, we have a bunch of different sizes. These are 3x4 windows. We sell lots of these little 2x3 windows like you see in the door. We've started as a standard practice, trimming out the windows in steel. So the reason for this is it's waterproof, it's very low maintenance, it looks handsome, and in our opinion, it's the right way to do it for one of these buildings, and then we think it looks great. Okay, so just some of the points that we wanted to make, and I'm gonna go back outside here. Quality doors, quality windows. We only put steel roofs on a Highland Outbuilding, and you notice too, up here at the edge of the roof, we have a gasket here. This is gonna prevent water from entering. It's gonna keep the bees out, insects, whatever else you have. And up at the peak there, a standard practice which we've instituted is that entire peak is vented. So there is another foam gasket up at the top that allows heat to escape from the attic. There is not much of an attic in a building like this, and we fill the entire cavity of the roof with insulation so that there's not an air difference between the roof and the pine on the inside. Therefore, we have what's called a hot roof setup. So there's not going to be condensation issues in one of these buildings. So, you know, I've been blathering for some time here, almost 10 minutes. I just wanted to show you, you know, some of the differences in our buildings versus some of the other things you may be looking at. Lots of our customers really see the value in these. And then occasionally we get a customer that doesn't understand why a Highland Outbuilding may be a different price than something else they found. There's no particle board in this building. There's no rough cut framing in this building. Everything is done with premium materials. We use premium fasteners. We use high quality steel, good quality windows and doors. The whole base is pressure treated. I mean, I could go on and on. I'm proud of the way the guys build these buildings. But I think it's important that when you're shopping, you look at what you're getting for your money. This is a fine structure, and we'd be happy to build one for you. You can find us at highlandoutbuildings.com. Check us out on the Facebook page at Highland Outbuildings, or call me anytime at 705-309-9088. Have a great day, folks, coming into the long weekend, Labor Day. Hope you have a good one. Cheers.